Welcome to Practical Privacy. Today we're going to look at the challenge of how to be a digital enabler without compromising compliance or creating unacceptable risks. And today I have Naureen Hussain with me, founder of Luminate Advisers. Welcome, Naureen.
Hi, Orla. Thanks for having me on.
Not at all. Great to have you. So can you give us a little bit of context around this particular challenge you were faced with?
Yeah, so this was from a few years ago now when I was data protection officer at Virgin Media, telco in the UK. And the organisation was just about to kind of embark on digital transformation in a new guise. And I had inherited, I'd only just joined at that point, and I'd inherited a small, perfectly formed, but very kind of small team in the DPO office that was operating much the same way as most DPO teams at that time would have been operating. So very policy focused, providing expert advice into the business, slow and steady, predictable programs that we were needing to support that were going through the kind of predictable, steady process. And then we had digital transformation knocking on our doors and asking us, I would say asking us, being very challenging, being honest, to move much quicker and to give much more kind of pragmatic, on the spot advice and guidance, because they were just an alien concept to us in terms of how they operated, how they thought, the pace at which they were moving through their change cycles. And all of a sudden, we were faced with this very well established way of operating as a DPO function and team just wasn't good enough anymore.
Yeah. So what did you try, let's say, to keep up with that pace? It's not easy.
Yeah. So no, it wasn't. And our kind of immediate, my immediate as the leader in that function, response to that was to, we'll need to up our resourcing. So we'll need to throw more privacy brains at the problem. So the initial response was to then provide them with dedicated resource. And these people in these roles in digital were, a lot of them had come from digitally native organizations, so they didn't know any different to how they operated. And they were, working in data roles and data science, advanced analytics, but also digital technology and product, and operating under the kind of agile sprint framework. And I had one person in my team who was, as we all do, who have people who kind of are strong in different ways. And I had one person in my team who was just naturally techie and loved the technology side. So I thought, I know, obvious thing to do. We'll just make him the, dedicated privacy person for digital, which, on reflection, was hugely naive of me that was going to be all that was required.
So how did you bridge the gap? What did you do that worked in the end?
So in the end, we realized that wasn't going to work because the system, our system, just conflicted with the digital product system. So actually, about 6 months in, we realized actually the escalations are not going away, the frustrations that are being expressed toward me and my team are not going away, and mutually, right? Because we were also tearing our hair a little bit. So then we decided, okay, let's pause and reflect and figure out, learn more about who they are and how they operate and how they think, because it was a completely different context. And so we spent a lot of time as a team embedding ourselves and being in learning mode. Including myself, went through training to become certified product owners under Scrum, which is the framework that they were using, so that we could understand the way in which they developed their products and operated, and then think about how do we redesign our ways of working and our processes to get to the same privacy outcomes, but kind of in a way that makes sense for the way in which they operate. And that was, so yeah, it was kind of slowing down to speed up again. But it put us on a very different path. And actually, in the end, we embraced that way of operating and that product mindset, and shifted our whole way of operating as a team, even towards the BAU work, taking those principles and ways of working fully across. I mean, that was a long-term development, but that's essentially where we ended up.
But ensured, obviously, more quality collaboration. It's not imposing anything, it's actually working together, which is important.
Yes, and also being invited in at the early stage, which is like the holy grail, isn't it? For privacy people would say, if you engage us early, privacy by design and all of that. But often that's very difficult to implement. But I think the approach we took, that was one of the advantages or benefits, is that we did feel like we were part of that cross-functional squad that was supporting that product owner.
Which is what we're hearing again and again. Cross-functional is a key. So if you were to go back and do it again, what would you do differently, potentially?
Taken a step back and I suppose embraced the beginner's mindset a bit more fully. And I think it's really difficult because as DPOs and data protection leaders in any discipline really, it's really difficult or hard to acknowledge that I'm not the expert and I don't have the answers to everything. And I feel that if there was one change personally I would make, is kind of just embracing that a bit more and kind of earlier, and getting into that discovery phase sooner, before thinking I understood the problem and therefore, tried something that probably, if I'd spent a bit more time in discovery, I would have realised very quickly that is not going to solve.
But I think, as you say, most leaders think they're expected to know the answers. So it's not easy to say, I don't know the answers, I need to learn a bit. Yeah.
Yes.
So one key piece of advice that you would share with your peers?
Get comfortable with failure, which is kind of a follow-on from what we've just been talking about. But I think it's one of the aspects of product and digital operating model mindset culture that I really, really resonates with me on an individual personal level, which is it's all about experimentation and understanding that the value of failure is ultimately you will build something that's all the better for it. And so shifting into embracing the beginner's mindset, as we talked about, plus it's all right if our first attempt, or maybe first 6-7 attempts at this, don't nail it. But let's commit to every time we're going to actually look at why did that not work and get feedback from the internal users. Because I think also as a profession, it's very easy to just be insular and look at and design a process that we think is the process that meets the legal and regulatory requirements, but it's not going to be an effective process unless it works for the user. So inviting that feedback, seeing that as really valuable insight and signal that you can incorporate into developing your next version of the process, whether that be a DPIA or whatever it might be. So that's what I would say.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Naureen. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Orla.
So that's it for today. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe and share. Until next time.